my name is Haylee Tien, and I was the Nex-Gen intern at the Phillipsburg Child Care Center. So about PCCC, it is a nonprofit business that opened back in 2019, and in hopes of providing an adequate amount of child care in the Phillipsburg community. So this summer I had the opportunity to work both in the office and the more business part of the daycare, as well as in the classroom with the kids, and so I got to experience both of those sides of the daycare. I also worked alongside 13 other employees. So how I spent my time spent in the classroom was filled with interacting and just getting to know the children while taking care of their needs. I tried to make it a fun atmosphere, and with games, crafts, activities, and I also made sure that the children continued to learn and develop different skills and concepts over the summer in hopes of better preparing them for the coming up school year. I also got to experience the office work, the paperwork, and behind the scenes work that goes on in a daycare facility. And there's a lot more than you would think, because coming in, I hadn't really ever seen that part of the business, but there's a lot more to it than you would expect. So I did a lot of organizing, paperwork, and computer work. So next I'm going to show you some more of the significant individual projects that I was a part of. So this summer we did a fundraiser. We sold 22-pound boxes of fresh peaches, and this fundraiser was very successful, so that makes me feel good about it. But so our goal was to raise money for outdoor equipment so that the kids can play out there, and hoping to provide better shade for the children because it gets really hot out there, and and it's nice to have the kids outside because they can get a little wild at times. So it's nice to have that fun equipment for them. So I had the opportunity to make order forms and different flyers and things for this, handed them out to the families and stuff, so I got to be pretty involved in that, which was cool. Working on employee and children files. So it is required by the state that every child that is in our care, that they have all of the required paperwork in their file. So some of that is just like immunizations, health assessments. We have to have emergency medical care permission and just different things like that. So I went through each individual child's file folder and made sure that they had all of the required paperwork. And if they did not, then I went through and got that from them. And then I did the same thing with our employees. There's required paperwork that they have to have as well. So I just went through all of that and made sure that we had everything the state required. I put data into the computer. So Procare is what we use at the daycare. It's for the enrollment and employee tracking. So basically when a kid or an employee comes in the mornings, they check in, and then when they leave, they check out. So it keeps track of hours, when kids are there, and stuff like that. But it also keeps track of just information about different children and more of that information that the state requires. So one thing I did is I took their immunizations and put that into the computer to make sure that we have access to that, and it's easier to track what the child may need or is missing. I worked on new employee and children folders. So basically, whenever we get a new child to enroll or a new employee, I basically fill the folder with all the required paperwork so that it's just easier to hand out whenever that comes. So it just makes it more efficient for whenever new kids come to be enrolled. As fun as this sounds, I helped prepare for the our food program audit. So it was very complex and it was very detailed work, but it was good for me because sometimes I'm not very good at that detailed work. It was probably the biggest project that I worked on this summer. It's a lot of papers, a lot of organizing, stuff like that. So the food program is a state-funded program that assists the daycare financially in supplying healthy meals to the children in their care. So basically I had to look through a lot of papers and put them in order from the date we opened, or they opened in 2019, to current. So there's a lot. And then, so some of those papers were like daily attendance sheets, menus, stuff like that. So I just had to gather all of that, and so it's definitely a big project. Okay, another thing that I did was I created activities and games and stuff for classrooms. So I found and created and gathered resources for different things for teachers to do with our school age group, because they're just kind of a hard group to keep entertained and to keep busy, as well as continuing to help them learn and develop different skills. So I gathered a whole binder full of like different science experiments, games, worksheets, different crafts, stuff like that, that in the future teachers can do with them to help them get them engaged and learn throughout those projects. And that picture over there is me with our school age kids for that day. Those were salt dough snakes that we made. So we made the salt dough, they rolled it out, made it look like their snake, and then we baked them, and the next day they painted them to make them look like whatever they wanted, but they really enjoyed it, so it's very rewarding. And then honestly, most of my time I spent teaching or being the teacher in the school age preschool rooms. So that was fun, just to get to interact with the kids, play games with them, do crafts with them, and just learning about each individual kid, because each of them is so unique, but they're so fun and great to be with. So the time I spent in the classroom was filled with just free play, worksheets, fun games, crafts, educational videos, and during quiet time we'd watch a movie, and it was just, I enjoyed spending time with those kids and getting to interact with them. So overview of what I learned. So I was exposed to many different aspects of what it takes to run a business, a daycare specifically, but there's just a lot more to it than I ever thought. So it was cool to get to experience that and be exposed to that. I also learned the importance of just being organized and doing things right. Like I said, that food audit was definitely very meticulous work and just a lot of sorting through papers and stuff, but I learned the hard way that you gotta do things right the first time or else you gotta go back and redo it all. So it's definitely important. I learned how to more effectively communicate with and teach the children, because that was definitely important, but as well challenging as sometimes while I was in the classrooms. And then I also just observed lots of the ins and outs of being a part of daycare and working at a daycare. So yeah, and then I want to thank the Nex-Gen for this internship opportunity and the Phillipsburg Child Care Center for taking me this summer. So